All right, it is noon, so we will go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to EdTech Roundtable presented by Dyno. Today we'll be talking about tools and tactics for student engagement in remote, hybrid, and in-person learning. If you're not familiar with Dyno and our digital event series, we started this event series back in March of 2020, and we're excited to continue it in 2021. This is our first event of the year, so I'm thrilled to have the panelists that we have with us, as well as to be talking about a topic that is really prevalent to educators right now. The reason we decided to host an event on technology tools and tactics is because remote learning really was a catalyst for integrating new technology tools and new devices into the classroom. And we wanted to highlight some of the tools that educators are loving to increase and enhance student engagement in the classroom this year, as well as some tactics that you can use to kind of enhance how these tools are being used. So in all of our conversations, we talk about not leading with the technology tool, but rather leading with the instruction and using the technology tool to enhance. So that's the goal of today's conversation. To give a little background on Dyno, for those of you who might not be familiar, we are primarily a device monitoring solution for school-issued devices, and we help teachers defeat distractions in the classroom, as well as help administrators and tech coaches understand the impact that school-issued devices have on learning and how those investments are being used. We have a new product launching in about a month, which is really exciting, so keep an eye out for that. But one of our goals here at Dyno is to really help educators like all of you learn from each other and access really great resources to build your PLN and learn about how other educators are enhancing what they're doing with different progressive learning styles and tactics in their classrooms. So we do this through our Tackling Tech podcast, our EdTech blog, 2 of our YouTube series, the Tech Coach Corner series and the Dyno Digest series. And we do this through our digital event series, which you are attending today. So if you are looking for resources or to grow your PLN and really engage with those out there, I encourage you to check out any of our channels, as well as all of our panelists today. They are all fantastic content creators on their own, so would love for everyone to engage with us and them following this event. Jumping into today's event, what you can expect today from a event outline is we will have each of our panelists share a short 5-minute presentation on a tech tool that they are using in the classroom and loving for student engagement. They'll be talking about WeVideo, Dyno, Wakelet, and Flipgrid. These are all leading tools, and we're really excited to hear how our panelists are using them in creative ways outside of how these tech companies typically might talk about their tools. We're going to follow those short presentations with a panel discussion on student engagement tactics. I thank you all for submitting fantastic discussion questions prior to this event. So we have some great topics and great questions to lead that discussion. And then we will also close the event with a live Q&A based on the questions that you all submit during this discussion. So encourage you all to submit questions through the Q&A tool during this event so that we can answer those live after that discussion. In terms of expectations during and following the event today, as with all of our digital events, this live stream is being recorded and it will be made available to everyone following the event. If you are unable to attend live and registered, you will still receive the event recording, and that will be sent out on Monday morning so that you'll have that able to access and watch on your own time. As I mentioned before, we will be using the Zoom Q&A tool to do live Q&A at the end of this event. So encourage you all to click that Q&A button and submit a question if you have a question for me or any of our panelists throughout the event today, and we're happy to answer those at the end. Today, you have probably noticed that the Zoom chat is disabled. So we encourage you to all use the hashtag EdTechTable for this event. Engage with that hashtag on Twitter and really use that to engage with all of the attendees today, as well as our panelists and with Dyno. Dyno will be live tweeting this event, kind of the high points and the takeaways from it, but we encourage you all to share your thoughts on the topics that we're talking about today using that hashtag. And we like to think of that kind of as the halls of a conference that you might connect in. And then the last portion I want to touch on is I'm sure everyone attending today would love to get PD credit for attending today's event. So we will include a certificate of attendance in that email with the recording after the event on Monday so that you can access that certificate. I think that's all of the kind of housekeeping that I need to do. So I would love to introduce today's panelists, get you all familiar with who you're going to be learning from today, and give them all a chance to introduce themselves. So today I am joined by Jennifer Laban, Erica Rodriguez, and Scott Nunes, and they are all fantastic educators who have a lot of background in technology integration and educating in different learning environments. So I'm going to ask all of you if you could unmute yourselves and turn your videos on. I would love to do kind of a round robin of introductions to get to know all of you before we jump into your presentations. Jen, why don't we start off with you? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Jen Lieben. I am in the Chicago suburbs, so very cold, very snowy right now, like many of you. This is my first year at the elementary level, but I've been teaching for about 20 years, most of which was at middle school level. I've taught art, I've taught tech and computers, and currently I'm in the elementary library position. So I get bored easily. I jump around. I do lots of stuff. So I mostly just like to try new things, poke a stick at it, see what works, what doesn't. So yeah, that's what I like to do.
Awesome. Jen, what learning environment are you currently in, just for context?
We have a hybrid learning environment where parents have a choice to be full remote or to come in person.
Awesome. Scott, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next. So I'm Scott Nunes, everyone, out of Modesto, California. So about 70 miles east of San Francisco, 70 miles south of Sacramento, if you're not familiar with the area. And I'm an ELA teacher turned tech coach just this year. So great time to be a tech coach. I'm learning a lot. I think I've expanded the number of programs that I'm familiar with by about 3 times easily, because I'm coming from the secondary level, but I've had to learn a ton from the elementary level as well. So I've just really broadened my horizons. I also have a couple podcasts that I run, the TNT EdTech podcast and Education Today. I love all things EdTech, and as a former graphic designer, I've just been in the game for a while, and I'm all about empowering student choice and student voice in the classroom.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you here with us today. And Erica, do you want to give a brief introduction to yourself?
Hi, I'm Erica Rodriguez. I am from just north of Houston in Klein ISD. I've been a teacher for 31 years and have been using technology since the 90s. Since about 1999, 1998, we wrote a grant and got some stuff to be able to do that. And I have been teaching science this entire time and love it. And I include technology in everything that I do, even before this pandemic started. And I am teaching in a hybrid. I do have, as Jennifer said, kids that I have about half and half, I guess, half that have chosen to stay home and half that have chosen to come to class. And they can come back if they want to from online at progress reports and report card time. So it's kind of a very fluid situation because some kids are coming to us, some kids are going home, and it all works out with the technology, because the being online and having all the technology involved helps those remote kids.
Well, we're thrilled to have you with us today, Erica, an OG technology user from the 90s, which is awesome because a lot of teachers are just starting to use technology now with remote learning. So thrilled to have you all with us today. Why don't we jump into our brief technology tool presentations? Jen, let's start off with you. And I know you're going to be talking about WeVideo today, so I'll mute myself, turn off my video, and give you the floor.
All right, cool. Thank you. So one of the things that I am sort of known in quotes for is that if you were to search YouTube for WeVideo green screen, my video would probably pop up. So I get a lot of like, hey, I saw you in that video. So this is the thing I'm kind of known for, which is using WeVideo, which is a video editing and creation tool. And I love using the green screen function because I just basically found it like a challenge, like how weird can I get? How far can I push it? What can you do with it? So that's how it all started. But I am very passionate about WeVideo as a tool. My school district does have a district site license for it. So we pay for WeVideo for schools account. But there is a free version as well, not as full featured. But why I love WeVideo is that it is cloud-based. So wherever you sign into your account, you have access to all of your content that you're working on. So for students that are at home or at school or on a Mac or on a PC or on a Chromebook or using an iPad, there's an app. It is accessible to everyone and it's not device dependent. So I love that just because I was using it on this other computer that maybe broke or I left it at home or the battery died, I can still hop onto another device and work on it somewhere else. So I think I loved it before, but even especially now, it's super relevant. So that whole cloud-based cross-platform element to it, I think just kind of beats out most any other tool when it comes to video stuff. WeVideo is collaborative, so you can create projects and you can invite other users. So it really lends itself to like collaboration and group work. Even if someone's at home and someone's at school, students can work together to create projects. I think that as far as a video editing software goes, it's relatively easy to use. So there's a screen grab of the dashboard here that you can see. And it looks very similar to, I think, a lot of other editing tools. So if you're familiar with like iMovie or Movie Maker or even like Adobe Premiere, the fact that this works with like these video tracks, these horizontal video tracks that you can kind of drag and drop stuff around and snip the clips in half and move them and reorder them, I think is pretty common for most video editing software. So I think that it's intuitive in terms of if you used one, it's pretty easy to jump from one to the other. What's really unique though with WeVideo is that if you have a For Schools account, you also get access to this media library, which is all of this like royalty-free stock footage. So video content, photos, sound effects, music. So basically it's like this amazing walled garden of content that even with elementary students, you can create entire projects without them having to go out searching, the wild west of the internet and worried about like your elementaries and your littles, like accessing content that's not so savory or filters not working correctly. So that's what's kind of nice about WeVideo is that you can work all from within, but you certainly can import your own content and bring in stuff from other places as well. So it basically does all the things. It does have a green screen or color keying function on it, which is, one of my super fun favorite toys about it. They are always talking to teachers and bringing in more features as well. So recently they brought in cropping your video. So there was this issue where if students were filming in front of a green screen and you had like sections of the wall that were exposed, before you couldn't do too much about it. So you'd have to crop it in like another tool and bring it in. But now you can actually drag and, draw a rectangle and crop your video out, which is super helpful, especially for littles, because I live in the world of littles now. WeVideo has screen recording, webcam recording, voiceover that you can do all from right within the tool. And then you can export your creations as videos, as animated GIFs, or as audio only. So you can also use it for creating podcasts and other, just a wide variety of projects. Now in school, I use WeVideo. In the past, I've used it with my middle school students, and we have created, one time we did digital citizenship, like PSAs. Another year we did commercials for our school, like because we were a middle school. So we did commercials about our school, like for incoming sixth graders, like what's great about our school, kind of hyping it up. So they had to make a commercial. That was pretty fun. One year we did how-to videos. So they had to pick like a skill that they wanted to teach someone else to do. As a teacher, I use WeVideo all the time. Really, I love the GIF feature. I do a lot of like how to with other tech tools. So I do a lot of like app smashing in that sense. And if I want to show kids how to use Google Drive, like how do you download an image and then insert it into your Google Slides? I mean, with the littles, it's very simple steps that you got to teach them, and you're repeating things over and over and over again. So having a tool like WeVideo to create like an instructional GIF that you can show them, and it's like, see, you go to insert, you go to image, you go to upload file, you go to insert, image, upload file, and it's over and over again, is so helpful. So just for like instructional purposes, if I have a sub, if I have a student at home that, you know, just wasn't paying attention, the supports are there for them. Thanks to a tool like WeVideo, it makes the creation of it like I can create it in a snap. So great for students to generate content, great for teachers to generate instructional content. And it's like, if I had one tool that I could pay for and one tool only, this would be the one for me. And I don't make any money. I'm not, no commissions or anything. I do generally, I love the tool and I use it all the time.
Thanks, Jen. That was actually one of the questions that we got from a registrant. They asked if you could choose one tool and only have one, what would it be? And I think you answered that straight out. WeVideo is great. I think we've had so many conversations with educators who have needed to use video more and more, even just for instruction or students turning in assignments and things like that, new ways for students to use video. So thanks for that great overview. Hopefully everyone out there will start using WeVideo and learn more about it after that presentation. So looking forward to bringing you into the discussion later, but let's jump into Erica's presentation. So Erica is going to be talking about Dyno, near and dear to our hearts. We wanted to include Dyno in this presentation just because we've heard so many educators are using it more and more for student engagement during this time. So Erica, I'll pass it off to you and looking forward to hear what you have to share.
Okay, hello. I'm gonna apologize first because my computer is running really slow and it's cold here. So I'm gonna blame it on the weather. It's like 30 degrees down here right now. I do use Dyno. It is a digital platform that allows me to monitor the student devices in real time. So the kids in my class, I can see exactly what they're working on. As soon as I pull up a class or an individual student, I can see exactly what they're working on. And it allows me to register or know what they're engaged in doing and what they're working on. And a couple of ways that I can do that is, as you see, this is my screen, and I know it looks like the numbers are really small, but some of the kids are at home and our district doesn't allow for us to monitor the students at home. It's a issue with COPA or one of those liability issues. So these numbers are the ones that I have at home or at school. And these are my class periods, and I just click on a class period and I am able to monitor what they're doing. I have a couple of plans that are set up called blocking plans, and those blocking plans I have already set up, and I said the kids can't go here, 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 here. And I actually have a really long list because every time a kid goes to play a game when they're not supposed to be, I'll go add to my blocking plan and it adds it, and it'll say just for now or forever. And so I will most likely click forever so that the kids can't get to that website, because they're pretty good about finding ways to play games. And this platform helps me to keep them where they need to be. And the other thing is an allow plan, which I can set up, and it'll only let them go to the website that I want them to, or the websites that I want them to. One of the things that I use, I have an allow plan for Classcraft, because we do Classcraft in my class very often, a lot, every day. And so I have just a Classcraft plan, allow plan, so I can see, so that's all the only place that they can go. I also have they have a communication or a messaging feature. And that messaging feature allows me to say, hey, you're doing a really great job on this work. I love it. To, you need to get back on task. For example, they went to Google and they're searching something and they're not supposed to be. I'll just go ahead and say, I'll send out a little message to them and I'll say, time to get back on business. And it blocks their screen for a little bit, and then I unlock their screen so that they can get back to business. And I did find out when I was talking to some people that they have they take off the free screen and they just send just little positive notes to people, or they'll say, you know, I really like seeing what you're working on. This is a great beginning to your paragraph, or your statement that you're writing is right on target. And I was excited because I was going to try that this week, but we have been shut down because of the blizzard conditions, the winter warnings. So I didn't get to try it. So when I get back on Monday, that's my first little tick on my agenda that I'm going to do, is work on positive communication with my students using the Dyno messaging feature. And it is only one way. So the kids can't message me back or anything like that. And then the third thing that it has is a class history. And then there's a question bank. But the class history monitors the students, keeps tab of the time that they spend on each of the different websites. And it's really good because if you're in a parent-teacher conference and the parent wants to know, well, how are they using their Dyno or their computer, then I can pull that up and show the parent, this is what's been going on, this is where they've been going. And a really interesting thing about that is I have a new teaching partner across the hallway from me, and she was not familiar with Dyno. So we found out that our kids were using Zoom to set up little chats with each other within the building. And so they were having a side Zoom on top of the Zoom that some of the teachers were using. So she didn't really know how to use it. So I was telling her how to do the block plans and all that stuff. And what she does with the class history is she will go in and see, you know, like weekly what the kids are looking at. And then she will go, oh, and she gets really excited about this. She was like, ooh, look at this. And she'd click it and she'd like, well, there it is blocked now. And then when the kids come in the next time, they're like, man, how come I can't get to this website? So it was pretty funny, but she loves this because now she can really make sure that the kids are engaged in what's going on in the classroom. And then another point about this is we have had our district people, like our tech spec, use this and our principals with conversations as to where the kids are going, so that when they're having a conference, they know specifically how the student is using the school-owned device. And another story is I just had a parent email the school, all of his teachers, and the kid actually told the parent, he said, I'm on task on this class, in this class, and it's his language arts class, because the teacher keeps telling me, I'm watching you. And so the kid makes sure that he is on doing what he's supposed to be doing because he knows that Dyno is working. And I'll tell you, it's not my class because that's just, I just haven't done that class. I will now start putting them on Dyno, but I'm not doing that right now. But I love it. It keeps track of everything. And the other thing that it has is a question bank. I was using this last year, the question bank, as a exit ticket. I'd send out a question, I'd have them all set up, and I would just click question bank and I would send it out. And the kids, before they leave, would have to answer that question because it actually pops up as a little box there on their screen, and the box doesn't go away until they answer it, which is really pretty nice. So they'd answer that as their exit ticket. Now, I'm not using it this year because of the issue with the kids being at home remote and then the kids being here. I have a different exit ticket that I'm using. And I did read another story that said a teacher was using it to decide what the kids were going to do for recess. So they didn't have a bunch of arguing going on, you know, who's going to use all the basketballs or who's going to use all the foam balls or whatever you have. We don't have recess. So but I thought that was a really good use of the question bank. And somebody else said that they used it because it reduces the noise in their classroom, the messaging feature, which I'd mentioned earlier. So if he wants to, or this teacher wanted to send out a large scale message, he could just type it into the message feature and it would send it out to everybody. And he said it reduces the noise in the classroom. And what hit me with that is that I have some students, or we all probably have some students that need that reduced noise level. And I thought this is a great idea to do that, because then we're not always constantly talking, and we can send out that information through this messaging feature because it goes to everybody's computer. And I thought that was really an interesting part to this. So I love Dyno. I've been using it since our school, our district has a license to it. So I use it all the time.
Thanks for that great overview, Erica. It's always great to hear those kind of anecdotal stories on how teachers are using the messaging feature and the question feature and all of those kind of additional engagement features to level up how they're using it. Just wanted to address a few questions we got in the Q&A while you were speaking, while we're on the topic of Dyno. Yumi had asked if Dyno has the ability to monitor laptops at home. The short answer is yes. It's based on administrators' decisions and district compliance just with how they want to enable that. Dyno enables administrators to set blackout settings that decide, if students can be monitored outside of school day hours or just within school day hours, as well as setting up IP restrictions. So if deciding if students can only be monitored on school IP addresses or if they could be monitored while they're at home. So Dyno does have the ability to monitor students while they are learning at home. And we've heard, I know, Erica, you're not currently doing that, but a lot of Dyno users have used Dyno as a way to aggregate students who are both in the classroom and at home, or just students who are learning at home fully remote. So that is a capability that Dyno offers, and just wanted to share that before we jump into Scott's presentation. So thank you, Erica, again. We'll bring you back in when we start the discussion in a few minutes. So Scott, I know you are talking about Wakelet and Flipgrid, which are two of the most engaging tools that teachers talk about. I feel like on social, I see these tools all the time. So thrilled to see what you have for us today. I'll hand it off to you.
No, I am pumped. And honestly, like 5 minutes is not even enough time to remotely begin to scratch the surface of the capabilities of these two tools, but I'll do my best to do it as succinctly and quickly as possible. And I encourage you all after the session to go play with the tools, get engaged, hop on social media and engage with the community, because there are so many willing teachers out there like myself. I know Jen's a user too. We're more than happy to help get you started. So quickly, my 3 favorite F words regarding these tools: flexible, fun, and my all-time favorite F word, free. Yes, both of these tools are free, so they're not going to cost you anything, and they're super flexible because they work on all devices across all platforms. They're browser based, and so basically if your PC, whatever device you're using, has minimal capabilities, then you're going to be able to use these tools, and they play very well together. And then best of all, they're fun. I think right now, one of the greatest challenges that we're seeing with student engagement, or lack thereof, is this student investment, right? Students are kind of shying away from doing the work. They're having trouble focusing, having trouble engaging with their peers. And both of these tools definitely up that engagement, so much so that you may find students using these products for their own benefit. But these products aren't just for students, they're for you too. So here are some ways that I use both of these tools. So I use Wakelet primarily as a content creation tool and a research tracking tool, but you can also use it for social interactions. You can use it to share, to catalog. Really, the sky's the limit with Wakelet. So I have an example in the bottom left of the slide of one of my Wakelet collections. And so this is something that I've shared out with teachers, and it's checks for understanding for remote and distance learning. And I encourage you to hop on Wakelet, make an account, find me and search this up. I'm at Mr. Noon's Teach on there. And I have some articles in there, as well as some Jamboards that I've collected from social media. I have a link to some of my own created CFUs or checks for understanding that you can embed directly into whatever communication device you're using or whatever format you're in. You can put it in your presentations via Google Slides or Microsoft PowerPoint. And both of these have such great interoperability, which essentially means they play nice with others. So you can use this with your LMS, something like Schoology or Google Classroom, Canvas, right? You can use it with whichever kind of basic suite you're using, if it's Google or Microsoft. You can use it on various social platforms. So it's great. You can actually pull tweets and messages from social media directly into your Wakelet, and you can bring Flipgrids right into there, or you can make the Flipgrid. So Flipgrid is great because you can use it to curate, communicate, collaborate, and create. And it's also great because let's say you're a little less on the creative side, tapping into what Jen was talking about with WeVideo. There are some pre-produced items in the discovery section. So you can go and discover what other teachers have done, and you can explore, ideate, and then construct your own lessons, activities, and situations based upon that. One of my favorite activities to do in the classroom is to have students do little interviews or reflections based upon a project that we've done. And then I generate a QR code and then share them out in spaces across the room and do a gallery walk. So that would lend itself well to face-to-face learning or high flex model. And if you're all digital, you could just put it in a PowerPoint presentation and let students check out each other's work. You can also stream, podcast, and vlog, and you can host all of those in a Wakelet, and you can search and find new opportunities that are out there. Basically, if you can dream it, you can do it with Wakelet and Flipgrid. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Sorry about that. My video was taking
No,
a second
you're
to turn
okay.
on. We got a couple questions in the chat that I just wanted to
Yeah.
share with you before we jump into the discussion. Rebecca asked, which of these have free options, or do you have subscriptions for all of them?
Ooh. So for my tools, they're both free. And maybe Jen can hop on. I think the question is generated for Dyno and for WeVideo as well. So Jen, you're probably a little more familiar than I am with the WeVideo subscription and how that works.
Yeah, so yeah, Flipgrid and Wakelet totally free. WeVideo free version and paid version. The free version does have limitations to it. I would say if you can pay for it, pay for it. And then I can't speak to Dyno, so Cherry, you'd have to help us with that.
Yeah, I can speak to Dyno. So Dyno is primarily paid, but we do offer a free trial, and that free trial is typically for a few teachers in a school. We like to have multiple teachers on a trial, and that lasts for about 30 to 60 days, depending on the length of that trial period. So the free trial includes all of the kind of features and everything, but it's just that kind of limited period to decide if you want to start paying for it or not. So that is with Dyno. After I read that question, Scott, I realized that it was asking about all the tools, not just yours.
No, it's all good. And I wanted to add one key piece with all of these tools. You have community backing all of these tools. And I think that's key, because if you get stuck, you need help, or maybe you just need a sense or a pathway to belonging, you're going to find that in community. So I encourage everyone to check out all of these tools.
Definitely. And Scott, one last question, and this is specific to you. What is the difference between Wakelet and Padlet, and why do you prefer Wakelet?
Okay, so they are pretty similar. So one key distinction is Padlet has a free and a paid version. Wakelet is completely free. Now, I mentioned that big word, interoperability, right? Plays nice with others. Padlet plays pretty nice with other programs, but I prefer Wakelet because it plays with more programs, and each day they're adding to their offerings. And I really just think with the leadership behind that team, that really the sky's the limit. I think it's going to beat out Padlet very shortly here. So if I were a betting man, I would double down on Wakelet. It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And I think it's a little easier to bring things in. Now, I think it's just semantics. If you're familiar with Padlet, I would say, hey, keep using Padlet. They offer pretty much the same thing. There really aren't too many differences, to be honest. But I think Wakelet, with its adaptability and interoperability, is going to far surpass Padlet in the long run. Plus, it's completely free. You don't have to tap into the paid version.
That is great feedback. It's always great to hear kind of the comparisons between two products that are similar. So why don't I'll stop sharing my screen and we'll jump into the discussion portion of the event. So basically in this portion, we're going to use questions submitted by the attendees prior to the event to drive our discussion, as well as some other topics that I'd love to get all of your opinions on in relation to technology tools and student engagement. So to start off, I would love to just start off with an intro question and ask each of you, what is your philosophy on technology integration and student engagement? How do you go about integrating technology in terms of student engagement? Jen, do you want to start us off with this question?
Yeah, I can start off with that. I have a lot of philosophies, so it just kind of depends on I guess in general, I feel very cliche saying a lot of these actually, but I feel like when it comes to tech, it's a tool. You don't want to use it just for the sake of using tech. So it's all about like, what do you want to do? What are your objectives and your goals in the lesson and what you want students to do? Once you know what that is, then you can select the tool from that, like what's going to best enable you to do that. And then it depends on the level of your kids. What's the easiest to use? What's going to help you meet those goals? What's going to, free versus paid, COPA compliant, all of that stuff, because sometimes there's cool things and you're just not allowed to use them. So that would be, I guess, the first and foremost philosophy. But my secondary philosophy, and this is for teachers and for students, but it's like, just jump in and try it. Like, so many people are afraid, like, I'm going to hit this and the computer's going to blow up. I think it was Eric Kurtz that said the poke a stick at it metaphor. And I love that. It's like, I tell the kids, my favorite keyboard shortcut is Control-Z, because it's the undo button. So you do something, you're like, whoops, you just go back. Like, you don't know unless you poke a stick at it and hit the buttons. So yeah, even for teachers too, they're like, I don't like to record videos. I'm like, they already think you look silly, so just go with it, Yeah. So there you go.
It's great advice. Erica, do you want to share maybe your take on it as well?
I have to agree with Jennifer. It is the teak. For me, in Texas, we use teaks. And so I look at the verb, and if I can find some digital tool that will help me investigate, or it will help me to have the kids explain something, then I will incorporate it. So it really has to do with the teak that I'm teaching, the standard that I'm teaching, whatever your state happens to call it. I use that first, and there are some that really don't, but lend themselves to something like that. And I do a lot of choice. So I have things that the kids can, print and write out or draw, make their own posters, but I always give them that choice of some sort of technology using Google Draw, or we used Book Creator the couple of weeks ago, and they created books, but that was their choice. And then they could do GIFs if they wanted to do GIFs. So it's all about, really, for me, choice and making sure that it fits that teak that I need to get across to them. Yeah.
Awesome. And Scott, you want to share your approach to technology and student engagement?
Yeah, really tough to follow up those two great ladies. So I would say everything that they have. And I would just say what I kind of do when I'm looking at tech, because tech is not a pedagogy. It's not a skill. Well, it is a skill, but you want to make sure when you're using it as a tool and a skill. Don't start with the tech. I always say Maslow before Bloom. So go up that kind of hierarchy of needs. Before you can even teach, you need the most basic needs met. And then from there, then kind of scale and use like backwards design, UDL, use like the TEACS framework, use whatever frameworks your district, your site, your state are using, and then find that place where the tech is not going to be a simple substitution like in the SAMR model, but really enhance the learning experience and maybe reach that highest level and really bring about a completely new user experience. Relating it back to Flipgrid and Wakelet, like what I use Flipgrid for is like the newest way is using it alongside Microsoft Presenter Coach. So students have this automatic feedback loop and it lets them know about the tonality of their voice and whatnot. And then they're able to just self-reflect. And then of course you as the teacher can go in there and then you could share those results in your Wakelet and keep track, you know, month after month, week after week, whatever you want your measuring period to be.
That's great advice. You mentioned SAMR. I think it's really interesting how during this time of remote learning, we have asked educators to substitute technology in order to, you know, provide that class environment. And it's interesting how we, you know, typically talk about using it to enhance and transform. And we've kind of had that requirement to revert back to the substitution and now kind of finding ways to go back to that transformation and really reforming the classroom in terms of technology. But going into that kind of style of Zoom teaching, one of the questions we received is, how do you help students feel comfortable about having their camera on during Zoom learning and in that position where they can really engage with teachers and engage with their fellow classmates? Or is that a non-issue that we've kind of discovered that it doesn't matter if students have their videos on or not? They just, if they're engaged, that's all that matters. Scott, want to start us off with this one?
Ask that again. I'm sorry. I had another message come in like right then. I'm sorry, Tiara.
No worries, no worries. Just how can we help students feel comfortable about having their video on during Zoom, or is that a non-issue and we've discovered that there are other ways to engage students rather than just having their videos on?
I think largely it's a non-issue, and you know, I'm not getting paid or endorsed by Flipgrid in any way. I don't even think I'm technically an ambassador. I just really love the tool, but I love using that tool specifically to scale because you can block your face. You don't have to show your face. So when I'm trying to get students to go out of their comfort zone, like I'm okay with the student starting off with not showing their video or at times, right? Especially if they're at home, right? Because we all have different situations at home. However, I want to encourage them to go out because that's a real world skill that I feel every student needs at all levels. You're never too young to start practicing. And so you can start by not showing your face, doing audio only, like student podcasting in Flipgrid. Then you can scale up by using some filters to block your face or transfigure your face. There's a cool little pixelation or block filter in there, and then go to actually showing your face, and you scale up maybe in short increments, maybe 15 seconds, and then all the way up to a minute or something like that. That's a goal for me with all of my students at all levels, is to kind of have this explanatory elevator speech. Of course, the length is shorter for the littles like the TK through second level, but it scales up and it fits in well with our California Common Core computer science standards.
That's great advice. Erica, Jen, you want to share your insight on that question?
Oh, I was going to say that for me, in the classroom, I have, we started off with, all I see most of the time is just the top of their head and a little bit of their forehead. At the beginning of the year, that's all I saw. And then as we get into breakout rooms and as they get more comfortable with it, now I'd have to say that I'm seeing most of the kids' faces, and it's just taken a constant, you can do this just for a little bit, just kind of patting them, you know, a little bit at a time, little step at a time. Kind of like what Scott was saying, you know, you do a little bit and then but your main goal there at the end is to get them to embrace this, but it has been a struggle. It's I'm at, the semester and I still have one or two kids that all I'm seeing is that little forehead piece, and they're fans. I could tell you the make of and models of a lot of fans. But it's been a long process, and it's kind of keeping them just, come on, you can do this, and they eventually get used to it. Except for there's a few kids that are just too shy they're just like, I'm not going to. And I'm like, well, okay, just try is all I can say.
Yeah, so I actually just posted to the Twitter chat, to the hashtag, this article that I saw this morning. Like, how weird that we're talking about this. I just saw this morning. I think my friend Patrick had tweeted it out, but it's Edutopia, and it was about the camera on, camera off dilemma. And as an elementary teacher, I do not experience the problem very much because little kids want to be on camera, want to show you their loose tooth, all the things. But as a former middle school teacher, I can so empathize with the thought of teaching to a sea of black squares. And I can also think back to when I was in high school and I was in middle school, and if all my friends have their cameras off, it doesn't matter if I'd rather have it on, I'm turning it off because that peer pressure is so intense. So that's not even taking into account issues of equity and worrying about like having a location or your network bandwidth not being strong enough to handle video, streaming. So there's a lot of other, aspects to think about. So yes, we have to be okay with it, but I get like the soul suckingness that happens when it's not there. So I think that this article is really interesting because they talk about some things that maybe you can do to kind of encourage it, and this is taking into consideration, like if you have adequate Wi-Fi, take advantage of the blurred backgrounds. Clearly, I don't care about the hot mess that's the room behind me, but that leads me to my second point. I think we need to be humans as teachers. We need to be okay with the hot messes behind them and behind us. And we need to be okay to like mess things up or to look silly or to like show up with no makeup, whatever, whatever those things are, or your dog runs into the room and you're like, hey guys, here you go. Like be human. I think that's the best thing that we can do is to just kind of like get all that ego out of there. And that can be hard, especially with like a lot of the flack we're taking from the community and from parents sometimes. So I empathize with all the things that suck right now, but also I think that there are things we can do to try.
That's great advice. I think one of my favorite parts of working from home and just interacting with people via Zoom is seeing their pets in the background or seeing the occasional cat walk across their keyboard and having to deal with that. So I think that's an added benefit of being at home and kind of having those interactions. But I totally agree. I think being human is so important and being forgiving and understanding and giving grace where that is needed. One question we got that I think is really important as we think about integrating more technology in the classroom and as we think about students using more technology, especially for just being able to learn in general, is what has your school done to ensure that they have met the needs of students when it comes to digital citizenship and the responsible use of technology post-COVID? And maybe sharing a little insight on how that's worked while COVID has been in place, but then also maybe preparations as you're going back to in-person learning or kind of preparing to do that. Erica, do you want to start us off with this one?
I will. One of the things that I think that we need to do is actually teach the kids to just to be good citizens. Just please, thank you. Sometimes, and I know people are like, well, that's not our job, but our job encourages a lot of things. But what our school is doing specifically is we have a period during the day, which is a regular class period for interventions, RTI, response to intervention kind of thing. And every Monday we have a day where we do SEL, we do digital citizenship, and we have lessons that we put out as a school. Our counselors put them together, and our tech person, digital learning specialist, put them together so that we can go through them with the kids, and the kids can either do them by themselves. I choose to do the full lesson, and I got everybody on board. I only got a few people in that particular class that are on Zoom, but we do lessons every Monday on either SEL or digital citizenship. And the kids have learned quite a bit that they didn't know. They're like, oh, I didn't know that. Or it's a good way of getting that through. And it's a regular Monday thing that we do, Monday lesson.
That's a great strategy you guys have in place. Scott, Jen, anything else to add on that?
Yeah, I would just add one thing that we've done that I don't remember which article we read it in, but we got the idea from some research in an article that we read, and we encouraged all of our teachers at the beginning of the year and the beginning of a new grading period to look at classroom norms and to include students in developing classroom norms. That way, everyone's invested. They're all stakeholders. Everyone's voice matters all the time, not just some of the time, not just when it's convenient for a student or convenient for the teacher or a parent, right? But everybody's in it together, and that really helps build rapport too. I know as some people are talking about like teacher burnout right now, right? I think one of the things missing is this like emotional and moral reward from connecting with students. And this is one way to get it back by including them in the process. You get to know them, they feel valued, and in turn that gives you some value.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful advice. Jen, anything to add on this topic?
Yeah, I'm glad I'm the last person to talk because I really feel like in many ways it's kind of a weakness in my particular, I guess, school community. And I don't mean that like in a bad way, like my school thinks, no, they don't. But as an elementary teacher, we don't really have students like using social media a lot in the traditional sense. So I think our obstacles are a little bit different. So in terms of like social media and stuff, I think we do a lot of modeling as teachers with how to use it because kids are still aware of it and they have parents that use, Instagram and Twitter or YouTube, and they see like, oh my gosh, you have a YouTube channel? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, how many followers do you have? And I'm like, it doesn't matter to me, so I can't even tell you guys. Like that was always my stock answer to them. So it was funny. And they just didn't understand like why I wouldn't care. So that would be one example. But where I say it's a weakness is that I do think that we've seen a lot of poor examples from I'm trying to think of how to tread this lightly, but there is a faction of the community that doesn't like teachers. There's a lot of hate for teachers right now, and it's very bold and brash and in your face and on the internet and on social media. And I'm really concerned with what kind of example that is setting for our students, especially when it is the parents of students in your own building, and you're like, what do I do with that? And that's really scary. In the classroom, one of the things that we do talk about a lot at the elementary level is media literacy. So in terms of digital citizenship, we talk about how to know if something's real and something's fake. And even like I have a 3rd grade son, and one of the things he loves to play Roblox. So constantly we're talking about like, what's a scam? What's not a scam? Is this person, a friend of yours, or does this seem like a sketchy guy? Don't play that game. We do a lot of those conversations just in our home. So, I mean, that's how it looks at the elementary level, a little bit different, but still very relevant, I think, for all levels.
Yeah, that's a great call out. And I think educators and parents alike need to model digital citizenship for their students and children in the same way that we, coaches model lessons for teachers and things like that. It's a holistic approach. And I think Jen calling out that starting at an elementary age before students are even using those tools is so important, especially because now they're using more technology than ever with remote and hybrid learning. We don't have any questions in the Q&A, so I'm just going to kind of end with maybe one or two more discussion questions. Scott, I know you might need to dip out a couple of minutes early, so feel free whenever you need to hop off, but just wanted to let you know you're going to do that whenever you need to. So one good question that I think is really important that we've talked about, some teachers like Erica have been using technology for decades, whereas others have just started using technology with the onset of remote learning and have really been tasked with figuring out how to integrate that into their classroom. How do you ease the anxiety of staff who aren't sure they're very good at technology or might be adamant that they're not good technology users and they really don't know how to use it and maybe are a bit averse to learning how to implement it correctly? How do you kind of address that, or maybe with colleagues who aren't as technologically advanced as you are? Erica, do you have any insight on that one?
I always learned to start with one thing at a time. I have a couple of teachers that do come and talk to me about different things, and it's just pick one thing and you're going to try to get the best you can at that one thing. And it may be something as simple as Google Slides or Google, because some teachers are just like, I have no idea what you're doing. And it's just one thing at a time. And even my dad, who still has a flip phone, finally, we convinced him to move to a iPhone. I think he's got an iPhone now. But it took him a long time. And some of these teachers are, and I mean, I've been around technology for a really long time, and I'm the one that just jumps in head first and feet first and all that kind of stuff. And I can see where it's just one thing and just get good at that and just slowly work yourself into it. It's a lot to, if you think it all everything that's out there. And I even had a teacher just recently, I was telling him I was having trouble with Adobe, because we had to sign some paperwork, and I'm like, I was completely lost because I don't use Adobe. I'm more of I use Cami and that kind of thing. And he was like, you were lost? And I'm like, yeah, I was lost. So even, I mean, and I've done a lot of stuff. I even have things that I don't know how to use. So it's just know that everybody started at some point.
Yes, I'm so in agreement with all of it, because that's the first thing is, yeah, start small. But I think that a lot of this, it revolves around your mindset, and that teachers are so ingrained to be experts in their area that we don't like to look like we don't know what we're doing. And that being comfortable with being uncomfortable in that weird place is so scary to some teachers, because it's who we are, and the fact that we teach is so much a part of our identity. To have that challenge and to have that feel not secure to us is so like anxiety producing. So like that's major. And I think kind of addressing that part, like the SEL component to it, like with teachers, I think is huge. But jumping in with your one thing in theory to like logistically spell it is really simple. You go into class and tell the kids, hey, we're going to try something new today. Might work, might not. Help me out. They're more than happy. The kids are more than happy to show you how it works. Or like, I know this and this, and you show them these things. And then somebody's like, well, how do you do that? My favorite thing was when we were in the classroom, I'd be like, hey, who knows how to make this bold? And they'd be like, oh me, I want to show you. And they get really excited. They'll do it on Zoom too. But it's just like, as a teacher, being okay with kind of giving up that control. And I understand what kind of a scary thing that can be sometimes. So I think kind of addressing that elephant in the room and letting a teacher know that it's okay to not know all the things, you know, or like that still happens to me all the time. Like something's not working on Zoom and I will literally stop. And I've said to my elementary kids, you know what, this isn't working, but I'm smart. I can figure this out. Just give me a second, you know, and we kind of work through it together. And again, with many of our other, you know, answers here, I think the modeling is just so important, you know, and maybe because I'm elementary, I know how impressionable they are. It's like, yeah, that's my deal.
Yeah, I love the idea and the call out of being comfortable with being uncomfortable, because I think this time and just integrating technology especially is very uncomfortable for many people, and students especially. So even modeling that, like you said, Jen, for students is so important. We had one question come into the chat, so I want to make sure we get this answered before I let you all go. It's from Tracy, and she is asking, what are your recommendations for how we can begin the conversations with staff on what to keep as we move forward in relation to tech tools, and what we need to really reflect on as something we need to do right now, but we shouldn't continue. So kind of how do you identify what technology you need to continue and how do you continue that momentum? And then how do you kind of identify what tools were necessary for maybe remote learning, but shouldn't be brought into the classroom? Erica, want to start us off?
That's, for me, it's really almost a district level question, because for example, we were using this one tech tool for a really long time, and then because not very many people were using it, they got rid of it, but it was something that some people wanted, and then we just brought one back. And so that's a tough, I mean, other than as a district level person, I like the reflection part of it, because it really does it. I would think you would need to bring in more of the stakeholders into that conversation so that you do have that reflection piece. But for us, it really happens at the district level. They're the ones that purchase the they're the ones with the money.
So she actually responded again and said she's thinking more in substitute levels, not innovative stuff. So like worksheets, etc. Just to add a little more context. But sorry, Jen, go ahead.
No, I totally get where she's going. And I think my hesitation to answer is that that's a really good question. And it like really has me thinking. So like substitute level meaning in the SAMR model, like things that teachers are doing, like, yeah, the first question when we had to move everything to tech was like, well, how do I make this worksheet digital so kids can write on it? And it was like, what? Why are you doing that? But at the time, it was just like damage control and we had to just like keep school going. But now that we've been in this, it's like, yeah, how do we make that a little bit better and make it more interactive or make it this? And honestly, I do think that sometimes districts mandating it is a good thing, but sometimes that like top down, like telling you what to do will come up with a lot of resistance. So I think actually that's where like districts having tech coaches and instructional coaches is such a great thing, is I think those are like just conversations that need to be had with staff and with teachers and departments, and they need to sit down, they need to say, you know what are we doing now that is great, and what are we doing now that's not so great, and how can we make it better, you know? So I think that it's people really have to have the conversation and reflect on it, I think, so that they can kind of because you have to be able to identify it yourself that like, oh, I was doing this thing to survive and that's okay. But how do we, make it better? So I think that some of that can and should come from the user as well. Hopefully that makes sense.
That makes sense. Before I let you go, I think a good kind of bridge off from that question and a good way to close out is, could each of you share maybe one practice that you have started with technology during this time of remote and hybrid learning that you would like to continue or plan to continue in your in-person classroom? If you don't have something off of the top of your head, that's fine, but I think it could be a great question to kind of close this out.
I was using the old exit tickets with the sticky notes that the kids would leave on the door. And that got to be really unmanageable with all the little stickies and 160 some odd kids. And what I've done is our LMS, I use that now as my exit ticket, and it allows me to very quickly go back in and see what they are, what they need help on or what they're getting. And we've had the LMS now for a few years. And so I was still just using those sticky notes. I'm not doing those sticky notes anymore. I'm using my LMS as my exit tickets for now, because it just saves me tons of time, tons of time.
Yeah. I wish I had like the deeper, like mind-blowing like tip to share with you all. But the thing that jumps to my brain is this really, it's so dumb, but it's like simple, but it's been so effective. And remember, I'm elementary, so I have digital sticker books for my kids. And this is not my idea. I got it from another teacher, but it's like kind of incentivizing, but also kind of like every time we do a new project, we read a book about space and we talked about an astronaut. So you got a little sticker of a planet. And then we did, that they did a scavenger hunt. I gave them a little magnifying glass, and it's a Google slide deck that looks like pages of a notebook, and they literally learn how to like download an image and put it in their sticker book. But then they can customize their sticker book and they can put their own things in there. Or we're doing an all school read for Charlotte's Web, so I had them all create their own stickers in Google Draw. So they got to, so I always tell them, I'm like, it's totally for fun, but we're learning a tech trick, in the case. So it's like, I'm tricking you into learning, and they think it's really funny, but they really do enjoy it. Like, it sounds so dumb, like a sticker book, they love it, but it's really been motivating and enjoyable for that. And for me, who doesn't like stickers?
Yeah, well, and I think those are the kind of little nuggets, like the exit tickets and the stickers. Those are little things that if we were still in person, you would never think to substitute with technology, or never think to kind of recreate in a virtual setting or technology setting. So I think those we talk so much about these huge ideas for technology integration and implementation, but I think those little tips on little, nuggets and things you found that are just working so much better for you now, those are those great tips that I think we can really take away from this learning experience, in addition to that larger idea of technology integration. So I know we're a couple minutes over. Thank you both for being with us. Scott had to leave a bit early, but thank you, Scott, for joining us as well. Jen, Erica, if you all want to share your social handles or anything that you're you're working on. Would love for everyone to follow you. I know you all have been engaging in the hashtag EdTech table as well, so people can find you there. But anything you want to share that you're working on before I let you go?
I have a children's book that I illustrated with a kindergarten teacher. So I can actually share that with you. The book is called Coding to Kindness, and it's written by Valerie Souza. And it's an early elementary picture book that has SEL and coding concepts in it. Yeah, so it is available on Amazon. So hey, shout out.
Awesome. Erica, anything you're working on or anything you're excited for you want to share with people?
I am just teaching and probably have got about 10 more years still left in me. So we'll see.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait to hear from all of you and continue working with you. Thank you everyone who's attending for joining us today. And thank you for all the engagement on social. We love hearing from you during these events. Keep an eye out for the recording. We'll share it with all of you when it's ready. And I hope everyone has a wonderful and safe weekend. Thank you both for being here with us today.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.